The emotional goodbye that changed my life forever. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. Mateo's last text was, "Don't trust the man on TV." Then my phone rang anyway. It was 2:17 a.m. and the caller ID said unknown. I was still in my scrubs, sitting on the edge of my couch, trying to convince myself that goodbyes didn't have aftershocks. The hospice night shift had been brutal. 2 families, 1 empty bed, that hollow quiet that followed a final breath. I'd come home, kicked off my shoes, and replayed the airport scene until my chest hurt. "Ms. Archer?" a woman asked. Her voice was clipped, trained. "This is Detective Shaw. I need you to tell me where Mateo Ruiz is." I laughed, because my brain couldn't find a more reasonable reaction. He left. He flew out yesterday." There was a pause, like she was turning a page. "He didn't board any flight under his name, and his car was found near the riverfront exit." My throat tightened. That can't be right. I watched him go through security. "Did you?" she said, not unkindly. "Or did you watch him say goodbye?" I stared at the small paper bag on my coffee table, the one he'd pressed into my hand like it was nothing. A stupid, soft joke. "Open it later," he'd whispered. "Promise." "I'm a hospice nurse," I blurted. "I deal with endings all day. I don't do missing people." Detective Shaw exhaled. "You do now. Councilman Briggs is already calling this a misunderstanding." That name hit like cold water. Councilman Briggs, the smile on every billboard, the man who cut ribbons and shook hands at our hospice fundraiser last month, the man Mateo had called untouchable under his breath. I should have hung up. I should have protected my license, my patience, my quiet life. Instead, I heard myself say, "Tell me what you found." "Meet me in the morning," Detective Shaw said. "And don't post anything online." When the call ended, my screen lit again with the text Mateo had scheduled for 6 a.m. Already queued, already waiting. Inside the bag, something hard clicked against glass, like a warning. I'd known Mateo since we were 10, the kind of bond that formed before life taught you suspicion. We grew up 2 blocks apart in West Briar, where summer meant sprinkler water and winter meant shared gloves. He was the kid who carried extra pencils because he hated watching someone panic. I was the girl who bandaged scraped knees like it mattered. By high school, people started calling us inevitable, like we were a story already written. Mateo never acted like love was a performance. He'd show up when my mom was working doubles, drop off groceries, and say, "Don't make a big deal out of it. You're going to take care of everyone forever," he'd tell me, sitting on the hood of his car. "Promise you'll save some of that for yourself." I did the responsible thing instead. I became a hospice nurse, steady paycheck, steady purpose. Mateo became an investigative reporter. Unstable hours, unstable enemies. He joked that we'd switched careers, me learning to sit with death, him learning to chase lies. The last few months, he'd been off. Not dramatic off, just a tension behind the eyes, like he was listening to a sound nobody else could hear. He'd call late, ask a question that didn't fit. "Do you still park under the streetlight?" he'd say. "What?" I'd laugh. "Why? Just answer." "Yes." I'd mutter, suddenly annoyed. "Yes, I do." He'd sigh, relief and fear tangled together. "Okay, good." 2 weeks before the goodbye, he showed up at my apartment with a bruise at his hairline. When I reached for him, he stepped back. "It's nothing," he said too fast. "Mates," I whispered. "You don't get nothing bruises." He finally met my eyes. "If I tell you, you'll try to fix it. And you can't fix this." At the airport the next day, he hugged me like he was memorizing my bones. "It's just a short trip," he said, smiling, but his hands trembled on my shoulders. "What's in the bag?" I asked. "Later," he whispered. "And Claire, if you see Briggs on the news, turn it off." I thought it was paranoia. I thought it was stress. I thought the oddest thing was the way he kept checking the arrival screen, not departures. Then I remembered. His boarding pass had no gate number printed at all. The airport smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant, the kind meant to scrub away panic. Above the gate, a TV showed the morning local news on mute. Councilman Briggs smiling at a ribbon cutting, his name sliding across the bottom like a brand. Mateo stood with his backpack on, too still, eyes scanning the crowd like he expected someone to call him out. I tried to joke him into normal. "You look like you're about to testify," I said. He forced a laugh. "Maybe I am." "Then tell me what the case is," I said, and I meant it. His gaze flicked to the TV, and his jaw tightened. Not here. I grabbed his sleeve. Mateo, you can't do this to me. You can't go vague and vanish. He leaned in close, voice low. Claire, promise me something. I hate when you start like that. Promise anyway. My throat went dry. Okay. If anything gets weird, he said, you don't play brave. You call Detective Shaw. Who? I asked. He touched my cheek with 2 fingers, gentle like a final check of a pulse. Someone who doesn't owe Briggs anything. You're scaring me, I said. Is this why you showed up bruised? His mouth opened, then closed. I'm trying to keep you out of it. I'm already in it, I snapped. I'm always in it with you. That did it. His eyes went bright, and he shoved a small paper bag into my hand, the kind of pharmacy used for prescriptions. Don't open it here, he whispered. Open it at home, alone. What is it? I demanded. A choice, he said, and his voice broke on the word. A boarding announcement crackled overhead. Mateo's shoulders twitched like the sound hurt him. They're calling my flight, he murmured. He hugged me, so tight my ribs complained. In my ear, he said, I loved you before I knew what love cost. I wanted to say it back. I wanted to say, don't go. Instead, I said the safest thing. Text me when you land. He pulled away, smiled like it was practiced, and disappeared into the security line without looking back. I stayed until the crowd swallowed him, the paper bag sweating in my palm. Then my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Stop waiting at the airport. The next morning, I did what I always did when I felt helpless. I chased details. I opened the airline app, typed Mateo's confirmation number from the screenshot he'd sent me, and waited for the checkmark. Instead, the screen blinked. Reservation not found. I tried again. Same result. My fingers went cold. I called the airline anyway. Hi. I'm checking on a flight my partner took yesterday. We can't confirm passenger information, the agent said. I have the confirmation number. I pushed. Silence. Then, ma'am, that number isn't valid for any itinerary. I hung up and sat there, staring at the paper bag on my kitchen counter like it could explain itself. I still hadn't opened it. The promise felt stupid now, like a superstition. At 11:03 a.m., my phone lit up with a text from Mateo's number. Landed. Busy. Love you. It should have soothed me. Instead, it made my skin crawl. Mateo never texted like that. No punctuation, no softness. He called. He teased. He used my full name when he was trying to anchor himself. I typed back, hands shaking. What gate did you land at? Send me a selfie. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. At work, I tried to be present. A daughter sobbed into my shoulder, whispering, I don't want her to go. And for a second I almost broke because I didn't either. I changed linens. I checked meds. I charted vitals with a smile that felt stapled on. Around 3:30, a man in a navy suit walked into the hospice lobby like he belonged there. Not family, not clergy. His eyes went straight to the front desk, then to me. Claire Archer, he asked. My stomach dropped. Yes. He smiled politely. I'm with the Briggs Foundation. Councilman Briggs asked me to deliver this personally. He held out an envelope. Thick, official, my name printed in black block letters. I don't understand, I said. You will, he replied, still smiling. Please read it tonight, alone. That night, the envelope contained a photo of me at the airport. I stared at the photo until my vision fuzzed. It was me and Mateo in the airport drop-off lane, caught mid-hug. The timestamp was printed at the bottom, 01/28, 9:14 a.m. Under it, in neat typed letters, someone had written, You were seen. My phone rang at 9:47 p.m. The name on the screen made my heart stutter. MRS. Klein. I answered too fast. I was going to call you. Don't say his name, she snapped, and it didn't sound like grief. It sounded like training. I swallowed. Okay, Mrs. Klein, I think something's wrong. I know, she said. Listen to me. You can cry later. Right now you follow instructions. Did he contact you? I asked. A beat. Not the way you mean. What does that mean? I whispered. Claire, she said, and her voice softened like it hurt. He told me you'd want to run toward the fire. That you'd call everyone. That you'd try to fix it. Because that's what people do when someone disappears, I said. And that's why you can't, she replied. There's a rule now. You don't move alone, you don't answer questions without a witness, and you don't open gifts in public. My skin prickled. Someone from Briggs Foundation gave me an envelope. It had this photo. I know, she said too quickly. They're testing you. Testing me for what? For whether you'll fold, she said. For whether you'll trade safety for answers. I thought of my patients, frail bodies, families clinging to hands. I thought of my nursing license, how one complaint could derail everything. If this follows me into the hospice. It will, she interrupted. Unless you're careful. Silence swelled between us, heavy with what she wouldn't say. Where are you? I asked. 2 miles from you, she said. In my car. I didn't want to be followed to your door. My stomach dropped. You're outside. Open your blinds, she said. Just a crack. Look at the streetlight. I parted the blinds and saw a sedan idling at the curb. Then I noticed the second car across the street, lights off, watching her. Mrs. Klein didn't come inside. She stood on my doorstep like a woman who'd learned to keep walls between herself and grief. Her hair was pulled back tight, her eyes scanning the street over my shoulder. You saw the second car, she said. Yes, I whispered. Do I call the police? You called the right police, she corrected. Detective Shaw? Nobody else. I held up the paper bag with 2 fingers, like it might explode. He told me not to open it here. That was before, she said. Now you open it with me watching. My hands shook so hard the stapled top tore crooked. Inside was a prescription bottle with my name on the label, like Mateo had gotten it from a pharmacy window. Claire Archer, take as needed for panic. A joke. Except the bottle was heavier than plastic should be. I unscrewed the cap, and a small flash drive slid into my palm, taped to a folded index card. Behind it, a tiny brass key clinked against the bottle. Mrs. Klein leaned closer. Read the card, she said. The handwriting was Mateo's, sharp, slanted, familiar enough to make my throat burn. Claire, if you're reading this, I couldn't come back. Storage unit, Harbor Self-Store, Unit 9C. Code 0441. Do not trust anyone who says, for your own good. If Briggs calls you, record it. If you feel followed, go to the diner on 8th, not home. At the bottom he'd added a date. January 29th, 6 a.m. Scheduled. My phone buzzed right then, like the universe wanted timing to be cruel. The message that had been queued since last night finally arrived. From Mateo's email address. If I disappear, open the drive. Don't wait. Mrs. Klein's face tightened. He set this up, she murmured. A dead man's switch. He's not dead, I said, too fast, like the words could protect him. She didn't argue. She just pointed at the flash drive in my trembling hand. Then he's in trouble. And he left you the only map. I looked down at the key, the card, the bottle with my name on it, and felt the goodbye reassemble into something else, a plan. A car door slammed across the street, and Mrs. Klein hissed, lights off, now. We didn't drive straight to Harbor Self-Store. Mrs. Klein looped through side streets, paused in a grocery lot to watch traffic, then said, if a car matches us twice, we abort. That's paranoid, I muttered. That's alive, she said. At Harbor, the clerk barely looked up when we signed in. Mrs. Klein paid cash, her hand trembling as she wrote her name. Unit 9C was halfway down a fluorescent hallway. The brass key turned with a soft click. When I rolled the door up, the smell hit first, paper and old cardboard. Boxes sat stacked neatly, labeled in Mateo's handwriting. Briggs Foundation, Hospice Gala, Riverfront Case, and one that made my stomach drop. Claire, do not open alone. Mrs. Klein steadied my wrist. Open it with me. Inside was a folder of printed screenshots, subject lines, dates, amounts, like Mateo had turned panic into evidence. Donation routing, August 12th, 9:06 p.m. Wire confirmation, $48,500. NDA draft, hospice staff, October 22nd. A second folder held photos. Briggs smiling beside patients at our fundraiser, then one of him with his hand on my shoulder, my name tag perfectly readable. On the back, in sharp marker, she's close. My mouth went dry. Why was he photographing me? Mrs. Klein didn't answer. She slid out a typed transcription labeled call recorded. Briggs, January 17th, 7:44 p.m. Briggs, you don't want to hurt people who do good work, Mateo. Mateo, stop pretending this is charity. Briggs, careful. You'll make it personal. I touched the flash drive in my pocket. There's more on this. There's always more, she said. At the bottom of the box, we found a notebook filled with a timeline. One line was circled in red. Riverfront exit. Car staged, January 29th. My knees softened. That's today. My mind flashed to Detective Shaw's words, and my stomach clenched. Mrs. Klein's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and went pale. "It's him," she whispered. Then she answered, and Councilman Briggs said my name like he'd known it forever. I didn't hear Mrs. Klein's side of the call. I heard Briggs' voice leaking through the speaker, smooth, warm, practiced. "Claire," he said, like we were friends. "I'm sorry you're being dragged into Mateo's drama." Mrs. Klein's knuckles went white. "Don't call her," she snapped. "Oh, I'm not calling," Briggs replied. "I'm checking in. I care about the hospice. I care about the people you serve." My blood ran cold. He knew where I worked. Of course he did. Mrs. Klein ended the call like she'd touched something dirty. "We're leaving," she said. "Now." In my car, I opened the flash drive on my old laptop. No Wi-Fi, like she insisted. A folder popped up labeled, "If you love her, keep her safe." Inside were subfolders with dates. The newest one, 01_27_Riverfront. I clicked, and my stomach dropped. A PDF titled Incident Summary, Riverfront Exit, described a collision at 11:46 p.m. A pedestrian struck a vehicle leaving the scene. Under Witnesses, one name was highlighted in yellow. Claire Archer. I stared until the letters blurred. "That's not possible," I whispered. "I wasn't there." Mrs. Klein leaned over my shoulder. "Then someone put you there." There was more. A scanned donation ledger from the Briggs Foundation, line items that didn't read like charity. September 3rd, Community Support, $48,500, Route, Harbor Trust. September 04, Family Assistance, $48,500, signed, C. Archer. "I never signed this," I said, throat tight. Mrs. Klein opened the next file, a photo of a clipboard from our hospice gala. At the bottom was my real signature under Staff Acknowledgement, Confidentiality. I remembered scribbling it without reading after a double shift. "They used your signature like a stamp," she said. A final file was an audio clip, only 30 seconds long. Mateo had typed the transcript underneath. "Briggs, make it look like compassion. People forgive compassion." Voice 2. And the nurse. "Briggs, she won't even know she's a shield." I felt like I'd swallowed ice. "He framed me." Mrs. Klein's eyes shone, furious. "No, he positioned you." I looked at my hospice badge and realized the cover-up wasn't about money. It was about who they'd sacrificed to keep smiling on TV. Then my door camera pinged, showing a man in a Navy suit. "Mrs. Klein caught my wrist." "Don't open the door," she said. "Look first." On the camera feed, the man in the Navy suit smiled at the lens like he knew I was watching. He slid a small envelope under my doormat and walked away slowly, like he wanted to be remembered. "Why are they doing this?" I whispered. "Because fear is cheaper than court," Mrs. Klein said. "And because Mateo kept receipts." I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with the laptop, the flash drive, and a legal pad. I built a timeline the way I charted symptoms, date, time, proof. January 17th, 7:44 p.m. Recorded call with Briggs. August 12th, donation routing email. September 3rd, wire confirmation, $48,500. September 4th, forged signature on family assistance. At 4:10 a.m., a voicemail hit my phone from an unknown number. No greeting, just a man's calm voice. "Claire," it said, "you work with dying people. Don't ruin someone's dignity over misunderstandings." I deleted it, then pulled it back from trash because evidence mattered now. I wrote the timestamp, January 29th, for 13 a.m. At 7:30, I called Detective Shaw from my car in the hospice parking lot. "I have documents," I said, "and I think Councilman Briggs is using my signature to cover something up." Shaw's voice stayed steady. "Are you safe right now?" "No," I admitted. "Good," she said. "That means you're paying attention. Do not bring this into your hospice." "My patients," I started. "I know," she cut in. "Meet me at the diner on 8th in 20 minutes. Don't come alone." Mrs. Klein leaned into the open window. "Tell her Harbor self-store," she urged. "Tell her the car was staged." I did. Shaw went quiet, then said, "Bring the flash drive. And don't lead anyone there." I looked at the families entering the hospice with coffee and dread and felt something hard form under my fear. Silence would protect my job, until Briggs decided I was disposable. I took 3 turns, and it took all 3 with me. In my mirror, a black SUV stayed glued to my bumper. The diner on 8th stayed open for people who couldn't sleep. Grease smell, cracked booths, pie under a glass dome. I parked under a light and checked my mirrors until my eyes burned. Mrs. Klein slid into the booth. "Did it follow you?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "All the way." Detective Shaw arrived 5 minutes later. No uniform, hair tight, eyes sharper than the fluorescent lights. She scanned the windows. "Then Saturday, show me," she said. I opened the laptop. Forged C. Archer's signature. The gala clipboard photo with my real signature. The transcript of Briggs' recorded call. Shaw's jaw clenched. "Where did you get this?" she asked. "Mateo," I said, and my throat pinched. Mrs. Klein added, "He planned for this." Shaw nodded once. "Briggs Foundation has a history of handling problems," she said. "You don't confront him. You document, and you survive." My phone vibrated on the table. Unknown number. Shaw pointed. "Answer. Speaker." I hit accept. "Hello. Claire," Briggs said, warm as honey. "I heard you've had a rough day." Mrs. Klein went still. Shaw's eyes narrowed. "Where is Mateo?" I asked. A pause, perfectly timed. "Resting," Briggs said. "He pushed himself." Shaw mouthed, "Riverfront." "Why is my name on the Riverfront report?" I asked. Briggs' warmth cooled. "Because you were helpful," he said. "And you can keep being helpful." "I didn't sign anything," I said. "You signed plenty," he replied softly. "Let this go, and your hospice stays untouched." My stomach flipped. "Are you threatening my patients?" "I'm offering peace," Briggs said. "You of all people should understand that." The call ended. Shaw stared at me. "He just threatened your hospice," she said. My hands shook so hard the coffee rattled. I wanted to call my supervisor, to warn everyone, to grab my badge and pretend I could protect a building with compassion. Mrs. Klein covered my fingers with hers and whispered, "Not alone." Shaw slid a napkin toward me. "Write down everything you remember from the airport," she said. "Every face." Outside the diner, the black SUV's headlights snapped on, flooding our booth with light. Detective Shaw didn't let me go back to the hospice that day. She drove me to a bland office building with mirrored windows and sat me under a humming vent while she made calls. "He wants you to panic," she said. "So we're going to do the opposite." Mrs. Klein waited in the lobby, arms crossed, eyes red but steady. When Shaw returned, she slid her phone across the table. "I pulled Briggs' call from your carrier," she said. "It's saved. It's admissible. But we need more than threats. We need him to step into his own lie." "How?" I asked. Shaw's gaze held mine. "We offer him what he thinks he wants." That afternoon, using my phone, I sent a single text to the block number that had called me. Shaw dictated it word for word. "I have the drive. I don't want this on the hospice. I'll do what you want. Meet me today 6:30 p.m. Courthouse Plaza. Alone." Mrs. Klein flinched. "You're baiting him." "We're documenting him," Shaw corrected. "And you won't be alone. You'll have eyes you can't see." My stomach rolled. "What if he doesn't come?" "He'll come," Mrs. Klein said quietly. "He can't stand loose ends." On the drive to the courthouse, Mrs. Klein finally said what she'd been swallowing all day. "He didn't tell you everything," she admitted. I stared at the dashboard. "About what?" "Mateo loved you," she began, voice shaking. "But he was terrified you'd protect him the wrong way." My chest tightened. "What does that mean?" "It means he planned to use you as his last witness," she whispered. "If he vanished, you were the person Briggs would reach for, because you look harmless. Because you have a conscience." The words hit like betrayal and love at the same time. "So, I was part of his plan?" Mrs. Klein's eyes filled. "He said, she'll hate me for it, but she'll live." At 6:27 p.m., I stepped into the courthouse plaza with my hands empty and my heart bruised. Shaw's voice crackled in my ear through a tiny earpiece. "Remember," she murmured, "get him to repeat the lie." Then Briggs stepped into the plaza, smiling like we were old friends. Briggs walked toward me like he was greeting a donor, hands open, smile polished. Up close, his charm felt thinner, still effective, but edged with impatience. "Claire," he said softly, "thank you for meeting me. I know you're overwhelmed." "I don't want trouble." I lied, because Shaw had told me lies could be bait. Briggs glanced around the plaza. "Good. Neither do I." I forced my voice steady. "Why is my name on the Riverfront report?" His smile stayed, but his eyes hardened. Because you were there, he said. You saw what you saw. I wasn't, I said. I was on shift. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You signed the confidentiality sheet at our hospice gala. You agreed not to spread misunderstandings. So you forged my signature on the ledger, I said. A flicker crossed his face, annoyance, then calm. It's not forgery if it protects people, he replied. It's stewardship. In my ear, Shaw whispered, now. I lifted my phone like I was nervous and hit record. Protects who? I asked. A family, Briggs said, impatient. Someone the public doesn't deserve to chew apart. And Mateo? I asked, the name cracking out of me. Where is he? Briggs' jaw tightened. Your reporter friend made himself a problem, he said. Problems get handled. My stomach turned. You staged his car at Riverfront, I said. You put my name on it so I'd take the fall. His smile finally slipped. You're a nurse, he hissed. You understand sacrifice. Footsteps approached. Detective Shaw stepped into view, voice loud enough to carry. Councilman Briggs, you're being recorded admitting intimidation and document manipulation. Briggs looked past me, eyes darting, measuring exits. This is a setup, he snapped. She's grieving. He used her. Mrs. Klein appeared near the fountain, clutching Mateo's printed timeline. Briggs' gaze landed on her and went flat. You should have stayed quiet, he said. Shaw held up her phone. We also have your voicemail, she said. Timestamped January 29th for 13 a.m. For the first time, Briggs looked scared. He leaned closer and whispered, I know where your patients sleep. By sunrise, Briggs' face was everywhere. Same smile, different captions. Councilman denies wrongdoing. Foundation funds under review. Police confirm investigation. Detective Shaw kept her promise. She moved fast and quiet. She filed for subpoenas, locked the Riverfront report as evidence, and told me, do not talk to anyone except me. Then she took my laptop and the flash drive like they were radioactive. At the hospice, anyone was impossible. Families recognized me from the gala photos that started circulating online. One daughter cornered me in the hallway, eyes wild. Did you put my mom at risk? She demanded. No, I said, and my voice cracked. I was trying to stop someone who would. My supervisor pulled me into a small office that smelled like copier toner. Claire, she said carefully, we're getting calls. Donors are nervous. Families are frightened. I didn't ask for this, I whispered. I know, she said, and her eyes softened for a second. Then they hardened the way rules did. You're on administrative leave until this settles. It felt like being exiled from the only place that made sense to me. I handed over my badge with shaking hands. When I walked out, I saw the Navy suit man again, across the street, half hidden behind a parked car. He didn't wave. He just watched, like my life was still a file on his desk. That evening, a candlelight vigil formed in the courthouse plaza. People held signs that said protect whistleblowers and our city deserves truth. I stood at the edge, anonymous in a hoodie, listening to strangers chant for a man they didn't know. Mrs. Klein squeezed my hand. He'd hate the attention, she murmured. I'd give anything to hear him complain about it, I said. Detective Shaw texted at 9:12 p.m. Briggs' office is being searched. Stay home. Lock your doors. I stared at the words, then at my deadbolt, then at the envelope the Navy suit man had left under my mat. I finally opened it. Inside was a single printed sentence and a set of GPS coordinates. If you want him alive, come alone tonight. My first instinct was exactly what Mateo predicted, to run toward the fire. I stared at the coordinates until my eyes blurred. Then I called Detective Shaw. They left a message, I said. They said if I want him alive, I have to come alone. Shaw got quiet. Read me the coordinates. When I did, she exhaled once. That's not a come alone spot, she said. That's a dead drop location. He used it before. My voice cracked. Mateo, she said. Not Briggs. Mrs. Klein sat beside me, shoulders tight like armor. He told me about one, she whispered. A payphone behind the old bus depot. Shaw's rule was simple. Nobody went alone. We drove to the depot in an unmarked car and walked behind the building where the payphone stood like a fossil, spray-painted, half-broken. Shaw lifted the receiver and listened. Then she nodded at me. There's a voicemail box, she said. Password protected. My hands shook as I typed the only password I trusted, the address of our childhood street. The line clicked, and a recorded message played, thin, distorted, but unmistakable. "Claire," Mateo said, breathy. "If you're hearing this, I'm alive. I had to disappear before he made you disappear." Tears hit my cheeks so fast it felt like my body had been waiting for permission. "I'm sorry," his voice continued. "I used you as my anchor and my alarm. Shaw will know what to do next." Mrs. Klein covered her mouth, eyes squeezed shut. Shaw was already writing. Mateo's message ended with an address and one sentence. "Do not go back to the hospice until it's over." For the first time in days, my fear had a direction. Afterward, I did the unglamorous work of healing. I scheduled therapy, told my supervisor the truth through Shaw, and set boundaries in writing. No more signing anything exhausted, no more letting guilt make decisions. I changed my locks, moved my car, and slept on Mrs. Klein's couch for days. Then the voicemail timer reset, and a new recording began to play. The new recording on the voicemail box wasn't dramatic. It was Mateo's voice, calmer this time, like he'd found a small pocket of air. "Shaw," he said. "The folder marked 01_27_Riverfront has the original witness list. Compare it to the version filed at the station. The edits show who touched it." Detective Shaw listened twice, then nodded like a lock finally turned. "That's what I needed," she said. The next week moved in plain steps. Subpoenas, interviews, quiet searches. Briggs held a press conference and called it political persecution, but the forged signatures didn't care about speeches. When the bank confirmed the $48,500 transfers were routed through a trust tied to his foundation, the smile on the billboard started to look like a lie even to his supporters. My hospice stayed open, but donations froze. Families asked hard questions. I answered what I could without turning grief into entertainment. I returned to work under conditions, everything in writing, every request documented, my supervisor copying Shaw on anything that felt special. Mateo didn't come back with fireworks. He came back with consequences. Detective Shaw let me see him once, in a small interview room, bruised but breathing. He tried to joke through the tenderness in his eyes. "You still park under the streetlight?" he asked. I laughed and cried at the same time. "You don't get to audit my safety habits." "I do," he whispered. "I made it your problem." I wanted to scream at him for using me. I wanted to hold him for surviving. Instead, I said the truest thing I had. "That goodbye ruined me," I told him. "Then it rebuilt me." He looked down, shame and relief tangled together. "I'm sorry," he said. "I loved you enough to be hated." Therapy taught me that love and control could wear the same face. So could charity and cruelty. I wanted anyone hearing this to take one practical thing. Save screenshots, keep copies off your phone, write down timestamps, and never meet anyone alone when power is involved. The goodbye I thought was the end turned out to be a door. I didn't walk through it bravely. I walked through it scared, with evidence in my pocket and boundaries in my hands.